need a motion. We will need a second. As I've been doing in the past, I'm gonna ask for comments. I'm gonna ask for questions first, then I'm gonna ask for comments. And then I'll call for a motion second, and then we're gonna call the roll every time. If you want to say something, say Tim, Chairman, whatever you want to call me, I would say call it out instead of raising your hand or whatever is. I can only see so many. So with that, let's begin. And thanks again, Debbie and the staff, for all your good work. Appreciate it so much. So great. So here we go. So A, the reading of the minutes of the proceedings of the previous committee unless waived.
Move to approve the minutes and waive reading of the previous minutes.
All right. First from Casey. Second.
Linda seconds.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 It passes. Thank you. B, then approval of the minutes of the proceedings of the previous meeting unless waived.
So moved.
First by Casey,
Linda.
second by Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it passes. Sorry. So the presentation of resolutions and local laws. Number one, the Commission of Human Rights. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry. We have a consent agenda.
Yeah.
1 through 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong one. My fault. I had my notes over there. So yes, number one then, consent agenda, Sheriff's Department, amending the 2020 county budget to make funds available for use by the Sheriff's Office within its Stop Violence account. Amount is $249,989.
Tim, we can vote on those all at once.
All right.
Unless there's any questions.
That's fine. So we'll do 1, 2. We'll do 1, 2, and 3 together. So there's number 1. There's number 2. Veteran Service Agency A local law amending the Onondaga County Charter and Administrative Code regarding veteran services. B, providing personnel changes relating to reorganization services and amending the 2020 county budget. And 3, transportation, authorizing a municipal agreement for bridge repairs. You turn off their mic there, or stop squirreling around. 3, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with Oswego County for bridge repairs associated with the Cognoy Road Bridge over the Oneida River, $650,000.
Mr. Chairman, this is Casey. I would move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, see on the first, the second.
This is Jim Raleigh. I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Raleigh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those,
Aye.
any opposed? All right, the motion's carried. Thank you. 4, that the Commission on Human Rights confirmed the appointment to the Onondaga County Syracuse Commission on Human Rights, the Reverend Roosevelt Bombs.
Good morning, everybody. This is Brian Donnelly. You have in front of you is confirming an appointment of the county executive to the Human Rights Committee for the Reverend Roosevelt Bombs. You have a copy of his resume. I'm not sure if there's any questions.
Any questions?
Tim, Miss Linda, not a question, but I'd like to be a co-sponsor.
All right. Zervin is a co-sponsor for that. Any questions first? Any comments? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda. I move approval.
All right, Mrs. Irvin for a first. Is there a second?
This is Vernon. I second.
All right, Vernon, thank you. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. On to number 5, Health Department. Now resolution 8, free medical assistance grade 5 at $36,479 to $40,281. Abolish 3 typist 2s grade 5. You can see it there.
This is a budget neutral proposal. It will be abolishing 3 typist 2s, replacing them with medical assistants. These will greatly help in the long term for the health department and their clinics. Certainly in the short term, they're essential to the COVID-19 response.
Great. Any questions first?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question or two.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Brian, these are all civil service positions.
Yes, they are. These are all tested positions.
Is there a current list available right now, or will these be appointed provisionally?
I do not know. I'd have to check to see if there's an existing list.
So do you know if are they going to advertise for these, or is there somebody in the pipeline, or just curious?
Jim, I'm not sure. There's relatively stringent requirements for these positions. So if there's a list, that certainly draw off of that. If not, I'm sure they'll look to the local health community to see about available candidates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Rowley. So I believe, as this was said, this is budget neutral. Are there any other questions? All right. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Casey. I'll move it.
All right. First by Casey. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Rowley is the second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no. Motion's carried. Thank you. All right. Number 6. Water Environment Protection, A. A resolution approving the proposed leasing of sewer systems from certain municipalities within the Onondaga County Consolidated Sanitary. Morning,
Excuse
Frank.
me, Mr. Chairman, can whoever's doing something, building a house or a barn, could they stop or mute their microphone? Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's better. All right. Very good. So here we are. 6A, please.
So, good morning, Chairman Burtis and others. I presume everybody can hear me okay, is that correct?
Yes, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought what I would do first on this is very briefly and quickly discuss what has changed with respect to the lease since the last time we spoke about it. There has really been no significant material changes, but a few items worth noting, minor items. First, the lease is materially the same in substance and the general format. It's still a 40-year lease with 4 10-year continuous renewals. The landlord and tenant obligations remain very much the same. 2 minor language additions. The first relates to section 3.2B, which is the section where we provided debt relief of up to $200,000 for the various municipalities after their surplus is paid down. To that section, we added an alternate or alternative provision, which is intended to support those municipalities that currently don't have any debt. So really, it's an opportunity for us to get involved and pay up to $200,000 for a green infrastructure project. That project will be performed by us, WEP, and it has to be an approved green infrastructure project as it relates to a town, village, or hamlet center orientation. So that's an or provision. So it's an either or. Either you take $200,000 up to debt relief after you pay down your surplus, or you have this opportunity to participate in a green infrastructure project. That was one change. The second change related to just some minor comments from EFC, which actually strengthen our position to be able to apply for funding with them, and kind of closes all the loopholes to make sure they're still satisfied with our approach, which they are. And then I'll just remind everybody of a few key points. This particular piece of the consolidation effort is phase one. It's Meadowbrook Limestone and the Meadowbrook Limestone service area. WEP and County Law have had several meetings with the local munis in that area. Right now, the town of Manlius, the village of Manlius are on board completely, pursuant to their legal reviews, but they have passed resolutions. Village of Fayetteville is very, very close. We have one issue that we're currently addressing with them. And we did have meetings with the town of DeWitt and town of Pompey scheduled a couple of weeks ago. Those have been postponed given the virus situation. So we're reaching out to them by telephone this week. So that basically sums up where we are in terms of where the lease is, and I think we're ready to go on Meadowbrook Limestone.
All right, thank you, Frank. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Brian?
Yes, sir.
Frank, if it's, I don't, more appropriate to talk about this offline, that's fine, but could you give us a sense for what at this stage of the process is still in negotiation in Fayetteville?
Yes, I can. It has to do with their offset position. The village of Fayetteville went out and established an offset program, and we just need to make sure that, and really what I mean by an offset program is for every gallon that was entered into the system, they took a gallon out or made provisions to take a gallon out so that they were running neutral in terms of capacity. They managed that system, and so we're working through some of the issues that they feel are impacted here. They think they have certain rights to it. We're working out what our rights are so that this doesn't become an issue for them or anybody else.
Thanks, Frank. Looking across the county, do you see this as something that'll come up in other instances? How many other municipalities have the offset in process?
I think this is a kind of a one or two off situation. I don't see this as being a big issue across the entire district.
Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome, Brian.
Other questions?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Two questions, Frank. In the new section you added to three, I guess it's, what we just talked about, 3.2B. Why does it have to be green infrastructure? For example, if we have a bunch of properties along the river that are on septic and we want to run a sewer line for houses to get hooked up, why couldn't we use this $200 towards that? I guess why does it have to be green infrastructure?
That's a good question, Jim. I think it was established that way because of the nature of the projects. Let me get the language here. I want to make sure I read it to you properly. So it's in conjunction, it's up to $200,000 in conjunction with a village Main Street, town center, or hamlet development project. Now, I think most of those projects are not subsurface projects. They're not utility oriented. That's why the green infrastructure, the porous pavement, the sidewalk conditions, the tree plantings to augment those categories of projects is more appropriate. That's my understanding of it at this point.
Chairman,
Make sense?
Tim, could I weigh in on this?
Sure.
Jim, Frank is right. The idea was that 200,000 on its own you can't really do much in the sewer world. But if we joined it with or combined it with the money that the county and perhaps the state would provide under a Village Main Street program or a town or hamlet center development program, that it could make a significant, contribution. On top of that, I would say that the thinking was that this actually gets to the heart of the problem that we're having, which is it's addressing I&I, which is not necessarily, something that we would be addressing in other types of projects.
Okay, again, there are projects out in Clay where I think wouldn't necessarily be green per se, but there's projects that I know have been on the table for a while now that $200,000 helps. Okay, my other question, under section 4.1.2, you have the word control. What does that mean within the context of this lease?
Can you point me to the sentence, Jimmy? I got 4.1.2 in front of me, but.
Okay, it says, by virtue of this lease, landlord designates to tenant and tenant acquires, succeeds to, and assumes the exclusive right, responsibility, and authority to, inter alia, if I pronounce that correct, occupy, operate, control, maintain, inspect, plan, and use the sewage disposal system. And again, here's where I'm coming from. We've had a discussion among other legislators that I would like to personally see some kind of process where the town gets to weigh in on capacity. So, I understand capacity is fixed unless you take a capital project to improve it. But, in the town of Clay, for example, I know there's capacity that's already spoken for that is, on the books that hasn't been used, that's 5, 6, 7 years old. Developers have come in and had plans approved and have taken up capacity. And, I think the town is interested in controlling that capacity. So in other words, maybe as developments going forward, they put a expiration date on the time they get to use to build the capacity, so that we don't use up our capacity. If the county's controlling everything to do with the sewer system at that point, to me, it doesn't seem like we have an opportunity to participate in, meeting out the capacity or at least having a seat at the table. That's a concern of mine.
Legislator Rowley, your concern, it's Ben Yalis. Your concern is well received. We really tried to strike the appropriate balance in this lease. Control is a function of operate, right? You really need to, the key here is we need to be able to control, to operate. They're all, a lot of these are synonym to certain respects. So, operate, control, they had the same general. We're going to be managing these facilities, and that's part of the agreement here. What we have taken lengths to do here, and try to do, is to embody the cooperation, mutual agreement. It's throughout here. We coordinate on plans, we coordinate on streets, right-of-ways, updating. And so it really is a cooperation and plan here. And we have, our capacity determination is based on performance standards, and that's set forth in the lease. It's based on standard utility practices as defined in here, 10 state standards. So it's really a defined thing. And in the background of this is what the EPA keeps telling us, and it's that we have a legal mandate to control satellite sewer flows, to control them. They want us to put in flow meters in all the satellite municipalities. They want us to actually bill satellite municipalities, perhaps. So the idea of controlling flows and the idea that that might have to be a county, the county has to get more involved in that, hands-on. It's something we are actively working on with the EPA right now. So this is, your point's well taken. It's also something we're having to deal with, and every municipality is really having to deal with now in this landscape. So it's something that just sort of had to happen. We sort of need to be able to control it more, but we have defined it as, whenever the municipality makes an application, we're basing it on a standard capacity determination, as the municipality currently does, as WEP currently does, and as municipalities and industries across the nation do. We're committed to the same standards, and if the towns ever feel that, we're going beyond capacity, it's all right in this lease. They have a lease remedy. And we never think that's going to happen. We're really imagining a cooperative and collaborative, process. And this does provide for the municipalities to be able to apply for, apply for extensions, new projects, and all of those determinations will be solely based on a capacity determination, as it currently is. So not much is changing in this regards from the way it currently is. In fact, little change at all from the way plans are currently reviewed for capacity determination.
Okay.
Chairman, just interject for 1 second.
No, please hang on for a minute.
Okay.
Mr. Can you figure out a way to turn off your microphone? I think that's one of the noisemakers that out there.
I apologize. I thought I had it off. I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm clicking the button. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
I'll sign out. I don't want to disrupt the meeting. Sorry.
If you could figure it out, it'd be all right. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Knapp.
Tim, I've got Tim Fateschi here that wanted to chime in on this real quick.
So one of the things, Jim Rowley, that we've been trying to look at is find portions or sections of the lease where we can show that it's the same way it is now. And Ben and I have been talking about this, and I'm comfortable with section 5.2 last sentence, where it says proposals for the expansion of or addition to the sewage disposal system initiated by landlord may be implemented only after tenant determines that the sewage disposal system and/or CSD infrastructure has the capacity to accommodate the proposed expansion or addition. So that's really the situation as it exists today. And
what section is that, Tim? I'm sorry.
That's section 5.2, last sentence.
Okay.
And so instead of, we actually had that negotiated into the lease, but or we had talked about putting something like that into the lease, and that's really the section that we can point to that says that capacity is if capacity is an issue, you can't expand. If it's not an issue, then you can expand.
Which, by the way, as you all know, is the current situation as well. So there's not a material change in procedure or the protocol that goes on right now between town approval process and WEP approval process.
Okay, Mary Beth, did you have something?
Actually, Tim sort of said what I was going to say, and that the county, this is the way this decision will be made is basically how it's made now as far as future developments. And the county cannot act arbitrarily and capriciously in denying developments when it has capacity. So, and I just wanted to, and Jim basically pointed that out. So thank you.
Very good. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, this is Casey. I've made it very clear from over a year ago that any proposal in terms of these leases had to recognize that certain municipalities have been kind of shouldering their responsibility for maintaining the sewers within their district more than others. And there needs to be some recognition of that. I've raised this a number of times. I've raised this when this was first proposed a couple months ago. Nevertheless, my reading of this lease agreement does the exact opposite. It actually benefits the municipalities that have not been investing in their infrastructure more beneficial to them than it is to the ones that have been on top of and maintaining their infrastructure more. And I know I've had this discussion with Frank, and I understand that we're under a consent order here. I have to admit, I've raised this a number of times. I made it very clear what my position was long before the proposal was even brought forward, as well as I made my position clear 2 months ago, I think, when the first draft of the lease agreement was prepared. So, honestly, there's been more than enough time to, I think, address my objection or my concerns, but they really haven't been. So unfortunately, and I'm trying to be open-minded on this, but unfortunately, this does exactly the opposite of what was made very clear many months, if not more than a year ago, would be a precondition of my support. So given that, I don't honestly think I can support this.
Okay, I understand. Have a motion? Are we ready?
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda. I move to approve.
All right, we have a first by Mrs. Irvin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who's that?
Mr. Chairman, that's Legislator Ryan. I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a second by Mr. Ryan. Thank you. Can we call the roll, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we have you.
Okay. Legislators Jordan,
No.
Williams? Williams?
Yes.
Rowley?
Abstain.
Ryan?
Yes.
Irvin?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
4 ayes, 1 opposed, 1 abstention.
Very good then. Thank you. Go on to 6B then, please. This is, get it. Local law authorizing the lease of sewer disposal systems from certain municipalities within the Onondaga County Consolidated Sanitary District for county purposes. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is just kind of memorializes really the tenets of the lease as it relates to Meadowbrook Limestone. It's a local law because I believe it extends beyond the 5-year window. And so it's part and parcel of the lease, has all the major elements in it, and provides the local law to execute it and enact. Want to add anything to that?
All right, thank you. Any questions first? Any questions? Any comments?
B. May, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So, and I was going to comment when we were talking about the lease in general, but I think it was more relevant to this particular situation as, you know, there's been a lot of progress in negotiation to get to this point. One, I really commend Frank and Mary Beth and company, Ben, for driving this thing forward and trying to gain consensus on a very complex issue. The other comment I have to make is that I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, and I think that each situation is going to have its nuances. You know, I agree with Legislator Jordan. It may not be fair for towns, villages that have done a really good job with their infrastructure, but you know, consent orders are consent orders, and everybody will feel the pain, including the ratepayers in those areas. So, I mean, I just think it's time to move forward. This particular project is good to go, almost. I'm comfortable voting for it at this point. Thank you.
Other comments about 6B?
Mr. Chairman, I guess just in response to what Brian said, yeah, I agree. We're under consent order, but there's been plenty of time to address, I think, the point that I've been making for, as I said, probably over a year now. I think that this disincentivizes the municipalities that are looking at being consolidated or to have their facilities leased down the road. It disincentivizes them from investing in their infrastructure. Why would town of Clay or why would other towns or villages be investing in their infrastructure and or bonding or whatever to invest in their infrastructure if it's actually going to be detrimental to them? They're better off ignoring it, investing their monies into other infrastructure projects and ignoring the sewers. So by the time the county takes over the sewers, they're going to be in worse shape than they would have been otherwise. So this isn't a tweaking issue. I think this is a major issue, and and again, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. I've been talking about this for very, very long, and to say that, well, we're under a consent order, yes, I understand that. I understand it's a serious situation, but by the same token, this isn't a new situation. We've known about this for a very long time, and things been done to really address my concerns. So to somehow now say, okay, well, this is an emergency because we're under a consent order. Well, but this all along. So why is it that my concerns and the points I've been making have been completely ignored in any of this? This is the exact opposite of what I said would be the condition of my support, and the exact opposite of addressing the issue that I've been talking about. And I don't think this is actually, honestly, in the best interest of all of the ratepayers, because of the fact that it's actually going to incentivize municipalities to not invest in their infrastructure, in between now and the time that the county leases their sewer system. So I don't think this is the best option. At one point, it was proposed that the county would assume the debt for the municipalities that would eventually be consolidated with or had their systems leased. While that was an imperfect arrangement, that was something, I guess, that at least it was some recognition of the fact that not every municipality has been shouldering their responsibility to an equal extent. But now what was brought forward was not that, and it was the exact opposite impact from the point that I've been making. So I don't think this is in the best interest of all the ratepayers. And again, to now drop this on our lap and say we have to support this now because we're under the consent order, frankly, it's disingenuous because we've known about this for a very long time. We've known about my objections for a very long time. So there's no reason in the world why the points that I've been making, the objections that I've had, could not have been addressed long ago.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, it's Brian again.
Yes,
last comment, I promise. I just to be clear, as I said before, I believe legislator Jordan is correct. I also want to point out that this is not just one legislator's comment or concern. I will tell you that for the last year, dating back to a sort of different but unrelated topic, these conversations have been had by leadership, with the administration, with WEP, and bottom line is they have been rejected out of hand. I can cite probably 3 different occasions. That being said, the circumstances are what they are. And again, am I going to hold back on the Stacy, don't take this personally, the small part of this that is wrong, or the bigger picture of this particular circumstance of just getting the work done and moving forward with something that overall, I think most of us make sense once we get to the finish line of the whole project. In the meantime, I'll join legislator Jordan and say that, you know, there is a small disincentive until such time that the county's putting shovels in the ground to address other municipalities' concerns. Why would, you know, I think they're going to have trouble justifying making significant investment. So, you know, and to my mind, it kind of is what it is. How many more times can you ask and hear the answer no? I think it's time to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. We're ready for a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it. Brian.
Mr. May is the first. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda. I'll second.
Mrs. Irvin on the second. Could we call the roll?
Legislators Jordan,
No.
Rowley,
Abstain.
Ryan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Irvin,
Yes.
May,
Yes.
Burtis.
Yes.
5 ayes, 1 opposed, 1 abstention. And can I correct for the record, I think I misannounced the last vote on the last one. It was 5 ayes, 1 opposed, 1 absent. Both
Okay.
motions carried.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to 7A then. Y'all can read it there. A local. Go ahead when you're ready. Who has it?
Nope.
Frank and I were just changing seats.
Okay.
To tell 18 feet. All right. So, good morning. I'm Travis Glazier, Director of the Office of Environment, for the record. The legislation that the legislature has in front of it is 2 pieces, A and B. But before we get into that, I'm going to just take a quick second to kind of give you some context as to what the amended agreement that we're discussing really is in the big picture. So first off, this only just takes a very short period of time. Onondaga Lake cleanup is really 2 separate distinct legal actions. We have the Clean Water Act lawsuit, which was by ASLF and the DEC against Onondaga County. You guys were just talking about that with the ACJ. And then the second part was a lawsuit by the DEC under the Comprehensive Environmental Response and Compensation Liability Act, or CERCLA, or otherwise known as Superfund, which was the DEC suing Allied Signal, Honeywell's predecessor. Sometime after the Allied Signal turned around and sued Onondaga County, claiming that Onondaga County had contributed to this CERCLA violation, which Honeywell or Allied Signal was being held responsible for. Onondaga County spent 2 years and millions of dollars.
Excuse me. Tim, there's a lot of background noise. I'm not hearing any of this.
All right. Yeah. Please everybody, maybe you can't tell, but there's wherever your microphone is, you move around, some are making noise and it's kind of breaking things up a little bit. So please just be careful. Go ahead, Travis. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. So after the county spent millions of dollars on technical experts and outside counsel defending itself against this action, which was brought by Allied Signal against Onondaga County, a 2-party lawsuit claiming that Onondaga County contributed to the hazardous waste cleanup in Onondaga Lake. Onondaga County and Honeywell, actually, who took over Allied Signal's responsibilities, settled out on an agreement that we call the stipulated judgment. It's a federally lodged agreement between Onondaga County and Honeywell International Corporation. This is a very complicated and far-reaching document that's really served the county well for over 16 years. It was a very complicated agreement because both parties didn't trust each other at the time. The county certainly didn't trust Allied Signal, and Honeywell came in and was relatively new, and the county had been fighting pretty hard against Honeywell and Allied Signal. So the fact that they were able to come to this agreement was a big accomplishment in and of itself. But the important part to this is to keep in mind this is between Onondaga County and Honeywell International, and that the part of this that we're actually discussing today, amending, is called a remedial use fee. It's language associated with this. And the remedial use fees were intended to allow Onondaga County to bird dog Honeywell and ensure that this cleanup process, which was going to take place, happened in a manner where the county had an opportunity to have some say in how these properties were remediated. With that said, the language itself has a tremendous amount of ambiguity, and since we've started looking at this language with Honeywell, it was clear that both the county and Honeywell did not agree as to the meaning of certain parts of the language. So that's where this change comes from. With that in mind, you have pieces of legislation in front of you. First of all, a local law which authorizes the county to accept 40 acres of land, which is referred to as the lakeshore property, to enter into 2 leases. One long-term lease for 10 years of approximately 20 acres of parking, and another year-to-year lease for an additional 20 acres of property for as many as 10 years, as well as a budget amendment to accept $625,000 from payment from Honeywell and adopt in the 2020 budget for Loop Lake related improvements. In effect, what really this does is, we get the 40 acres property, we get the 2 leases of this Willis Ave parking area, which the county can use to offset amphitheater parking needs or to generate revenue by allowing for state fair parking. Obviously, payment of $625,000 from Honeywell. Honeywell receives an extension of the remedial use fee suspension period for 10 years, so that those sites which haven't met a qualifying use at this time, they have 10 years to meet those qualifying uses. So there's a suspension period for the fees. And then in addition, it clarifies ambiguity within the agreement itself. So it ensures that both parties now agree as to really the primary sources of disagreement were which properties are subject to remedial use fee, and then what is a qualifying use to move a property from paying a remedial use fee to no longer being obligated to pay that fee. So it clarifies that 2 bits of language. And I just want to close, and I'll open up questions after this, but the goal of the remedial use fees was never to generate revenue for the county. Had these have been a revenue generator for Onondaga County, it would have been really bad news for us, because these properties would not be coming back into reuse. They would have been stagnant, and they would have continued to be contaminated. The amounts of money that we're talking about wouldn't have ever covered anywhere near 5% to actually clean up any of these sites. So it was really intended to be a hook in which Onondaga County could continue to participate on the CERCLA side and ensure that Honeywell and DEC were looking out for the interests of the county taxpayers. So with that, I'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Travis?
Mr. Chairman, I looked at the previous amendment to the stipulated judgment and made reference to a payment of $950,000. Was that in fact made, and if so, what were those monies used for?
Payment was made. I don't have the information in front of me as far as, I think they went to the general fund. Mary Beth may be more knowledgeable about where those, because that was right around the time when I just started the position. Mary Beth?
Right. We did receive payment, and I don't recall exactly where they went. Steve Morgan, are you there?
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, it's Steve Morgan. Yeah, I believe they went into the existing Loop Lake project where these funds are going into, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And then I had previously asked Ben, I did get response some questions. He made reference to, I guess, because my concern is that we're taking title to contaminated property, and I have concerns about, I guess, future responsibilities. Now, Ben's assuring me that, and I see that in the consent judgment, or stipulated judgment, that what Honeywell would indemnify us for any liabilities or actions brought relative to contamination on these sites. However, I have a concern about taking title that could change the whole dynamic. Ben did make reference to the purchase agreement, specifying that Honeywell would continue to have a responsibility for any additional cleanup or remediation necessary. But I haven't seen that agreement yet, so I would again ask to get a copy of that purchase agreement, and especially obviously the provisions wherein Honeywell would remain liable for any additional cleanup or remediation. So I, based upon that, until I can get that, at this point, I'm just going to abstain from a vote on this. But I would ask for a copy of that purchase agreement or any of the documentation we have that was specifically says that, irrespective of the county taking title to the property, that Honeywell would be solely responsible for any additional cleanup remediation on the parcels being conveyed to us.
Sure, Legislator Jordan, this is Ben. The legislators will not have the purchase agreement before session. It's going to be a while to work out with Honeywell. It goes through their real estate folks, and the lease as well for the actual parking lot leases. But the terms are set forth. That's what this local law is. It sets forth the basic terms. We've got a lot of experience working with Honeywell on this. We've got talented real estate folks in the county law department, and we've just done a very recent property sale for similarly contaminated property on the LCP site. So we're very familiar with this. This is how we've done these sort of arrangements in the past. So we've laid out everything we're going to put in here. We're obviously going to fully protect the county. That's 100% our goal. And I circulated the consent order that binds Honeywell to do these sites. I mentioned the language that will be filed with the court that will make sure that they have access and outline, their continuing responsibility for the remedy. And then the stipulated judgment also, as you mentioned, provides indemnification and, for any action. So none of this sale will not transfer that. So you are right, in the normal circular context, you want to be careful about ordering, getting in the title of property. That is not really a concern here. It's a remediated site. The regulators are all satisfied because the remedy has been, they have a PRP who is performing the remedy. They're not looking at anybody else. Their site, we're familiar with the site. So this is a sort of unique scenario, and we are protected on sort of many different fronts, and we're making sure. And that'll be in the purchase agreement as well. But I just wanted to clarify that that is not available. We do not have a purchase agreement right now drafted.
Why are we moving forward with this resolution if we don't have those details already kind of worked out in writing? I mean, is there some reason why we have to do this now versus once we have the purchase agreement and lease agreements drafted, then bring it forward for a vote?
Legislator Jordan, this is a federally, this document is lodged with the federal court. So there's a process at which, after we put these documents together, we're subject to waiting for federal judge, bearing in mind that the term.
There's another executive order coming for childcare.
Okay.
Tim, turn off your
mic.
Sorry.
Okay, Travis, go ahead. Thank you.
That's right. The payment is due December 31st, 2020, for these remedial use fees. If this agreement isn't in place prior to them, it could lead Onondaga County and Honeywell to have to resolve this at the courts. And so the idea of beginning this process here with the legislature and empowering the county executive and the county attorneys to, under the terms which are outlined within the local law, to pursue getting the agreement altered in a way which is completely reflective of there. And as Ben noted, the county, and I think in his email, the county doesn't intend on indemnifying Honeywell of any of its responsibilities as ordered under the consent order. To get these pieces in place so that we can then get documents finalized and lodged with the courts for review and eventual approval before December 31st, 2020 is really the key. So we're on a really tight timetable. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of pressure now with everything that's happening for us to still meet that timeline. So one way or another, we need to resolve this before that time frame. That's why we're advancing this legislation in the time context that we are, so that we can have this agreement in place prior to that December 31st deadline.
Why, do we really anticipate it taking that long to get the agreement in place? I mean, December 31st is a long ways away.
Yep, Honeywell is extremely busy right now around the lake and everything as well. They have numerous projects, and the real estate folks are very busy. We looked at both of our schedules, and yes, it makes, it's going to take them some time. It's going to take the parties some time too. We're going to advance it as quick as possible. But it has to go through their real estate folks and their vice president and everything like that. So it follows a formal process. And so there's just, there were certain things, seeker has to be filed. There's certain things we needed to do, and it made sense to move it now with the upcoming date. It sets, it gets all the parties into an understanding of how we're going to approach this going forward. And really, I don't want to say it's ministerial, but we have a standard approach to, approaching a purchase agreement like this with Honeywell and the leases. They're not form documents, but they're industry documents. So it takes some time to draft them, go between, but we're not expecting anything out of the ordinary here. We've done this before.
And this approach was how the LCP property was handled as well.
Well, and I'm looking at the resolution now. The resolution makes no reference to the fact that Honeywell would remain liable for any cleanup or remediation on the property.
I did not recite the entire what will be filed in the court. I did not recite that all, but that will be clearly laid out in the court documents, as well as the purchase agreement, and all of that is set forth in existing the existing stipulated judgment and consent orders, and so those are in existing orders as well. But you are right; it's not in the local law.
Anything else? Beth, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to say that we are going to put into the purchase offer a provision that would survive the purchase offer, because as Casey knows, generally they merge, generally they fall away once you have a deed. We will put in there a provision, as Ben just laid out, that we are protected. This remedy is Honeywell's. They are responsible for the remedy to continue, and they are liable if it doesn't. But even if we didn't put it in there, they are still responsible for the remedy and liable if it doesn't, based on federal and state law. So this is just like, we're basically just adding another layer that's really not even necessary. Ben, would you say that's correct?
I would. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
If there's nothing else, could I have a motion? Can I have a first?
Chairman, I'll move it.
Mr. Ryan is the first, I believe. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I know there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, Mr. Manning.
Yeah, I know there's a motion on the floor. Sorry, I didn't unmute myself before you got the motion. But I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, it makes, it's 99% makes sense to me. But this resolution is our work product, and I sort of have no doubt that the law will support legislator Jordan's concerns and probably all of our concerns that Honeywell will be responsible for any future remediation. But it'd be nice for our work product to have that language. So, I mean, I'm going to ultimately end up abstaining because I would love to see this just have those words in there. Because again, this is the county legislature's work product, and it should say what we would like it to say. But that being said, it's uncharacteristic for us to allow things like this to move on to session. But in this case, if we could just consider it considered and let it go and have that slight adjustment made to the resolution, I think it'd be better for all of us. That's just my opinion. Otherwise,
One thing, and I apologize, it's a little hard with it being virtual. This is Ben Young. I am not sure, I just have to check with Lori procedurally about altering a local law after local law day. There's something in there. I apologize for not being the parliamentarian here. But I'll have to check with Lori about that. With that, understand, it doesn't change the nature of the agreement or the local law, but I completely understand why you'd like that in there. In hindsight, I probably should have added that in. You know, we multiple versions of this back and forth. In an ideal world, I would have put that in there. So that was probably an oversight on my part, but it is embodied in the agreement. It's as we discussed. So hopefully that's enough for you guys. But I will take that going forward as a note to add that kind of language in here. So.
Okay, I'd like to continue though. I do have a first. Just looking for a second. That's proper, right?
I'll second it. Be May.
Be May on the second. Okay. We call the roll, please.
Legislator Jordan,
Abstain.
Say again.
Sorry. Oh, abstain.
Ryan. Chris Ryan. Your mic's off.
Sorry. Yes. Got to unmute there.
Williams. Irvin.
I'm reluctant, but I will say yes.
May.
Abstain.
Burtis.
Yeah. Yes.
4 ayes, none opposed, 3 abstentions.
Very good.
And then Ben. Ben, it's Brian. Could you so between now and session, you'll be able to investigate whether you can get that language in there, that slight adjustment?
I'll ask as soon as I get back to the office. Yep.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Very good. So let's go on to 7B, please. This is the partner P to Travis, did you want to speak to this, or it's pretty easy?
Yeah, this is just a $126,000 payment to Onondaga County. Accompanying is the other part of the agreement. So it's really the 3 parts: the leases, the property acquisition, and the $625,000 payment for the county.
Again, people, please be careful of your mic. Okay, any comments? 7B.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Ali?
Again, I guess I'm a little confused. Will we see the actual lease? Will we have to approve that at some point down the road, or does this local law take care of it?
This local law would authorize us to do both, pursuant to the terms of the local law, and that's why we set forth in there. The only thing that might change is if our insurance, if Honeywell's insurance rate goes up based on our use of the parking lot, or taxes go up. We don't really expect that, and to be very minimal. But really, other than that, it's a pretty standard lease for the set duration for just use of the parking lot. But no, the answer is no. Nothing. It would not come back to you guys for a vote.
Okay.
Can I have a motion?
B. May, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Travis, can you elaborate on the three parts and specifically, you really skimmed it. How does this resolution relate to what we just talked about or in the prior resolution, or is it really a separate standalone thing?
No, thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, so in amending the stipulated judgment, there's the exchange, I guess, of a variety of pieces, one of which is this payment. And so this legislation is just authorizing the county to accept the payment for Loop the Lake Trails improvements. The other pieces, which are outlined in the local law, are the acceptance of the property and the authorization for the county to enter into the two leases. So that's really the three key components that are the amending. It's a negotiated agreement at this point. So that's three of the pieces of it, and then obviously there's the extension, as I mentioned earlier, my introduction to the prior one. There's the extension of the period to meet qualifying uses under remedial use fees, and then the clarification of the language. So that is kind of all encompassing. Is that what you were looking for, Legislator May?
Well, I guess I'm just, let me try to ask this very simply then. Yeah, that's helpful, thank you, because I didn't think I had full perspective on it. But this $625,000 has nothing to do with the lease of the parking areas, does it? Or is it independent of that, but within the same agreement, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Travis.
Hi, it's Peggy. Can I ask a question? Okay, Travis said that money was for the improvement of the Loop the Lake would be used. Are there specific things related to what the plan for that is?
Well, why don't you take it offline, Peggy? Travis, if you can get back to her, I guess it'd probably be the best thing. We've got to try to keep this going.
Thank you.
Okay, I was looking for a motion. Do I have a first?
I'll move it. B. May.
B. May as the first. Is there a second?
Chairman, I'll second the motion.
Mr. Ryan, second. Debbie, could we call the roll?
Legislators Jordan,
Yes.
Rowley,
Abstain.
Ryan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Irvin,
Yes.
May,
Yes.
Curtis. Six ayes, none opposed, one abstention.
Thank you. Okay, please, let's go to 8A. In the building at 505 State Street, in honor of the Honorable James C. Tormey III, former Justice of New York State Supreme Court.
Morning, everybody. Brian Donnelly, County Executive Command, proposed this in his State of the County address. As it said, would rename the current criminal courthouse to the James C. Tormey Criminal Courthouse.
Any discussion at all?
Mr. Chairman, this is Casey Jordan. I'd like to be listed as a co-sponsor on the resolution.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda. I'd like to also be a co-sponsor.
And it's Peggy. I would like to too.
Peggy, you're supposed to be over there quiet, but okay.
No, I can speak.
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah. Brian, co-sponsor too, Brian May, please. Thank you.
Yeah, put me in too, please.
Jim Rowley. And then also Mr. Burtis. Well, my guess is my dad. Anyway, here we are, 8A. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Casey Jordan.
Casey Jordan is first. Is there a second?
Second, Linda.
Linda, great. Yeah, could we call the roll?
Legislators Jordan,
Yes.
Rowley,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Irvin,
Yes.
May,
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
7 ayes, none opposed.
Thank you. Let's move on to 9A. Now, do not intend to take a vote here, but we'd like to work on this some. So this is amending the health benefit plan for certain retiree spouses and dependents. Mr. Knapp.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, the county executive actually presented this in his State of the County address. Amazing how the world has changed since that address. We needed to do this then, but in the situation now, we really, really, really are going to need to do this now. This is part of a list of austerity measures that Steve Morgan, the county executive, and his team have been working on. And, so this, it's not just the retiree piece, which is a very important piece, but this is part of an overall plan. Again, not knowing what the state is doing with their budget, not looking good for us from a Medicaid standpoint and several other areas. This, and given our sales tax situation, this could be a truly very, very difficult year for us. So what we were talking about, I've talked to Brian May about this several times, and the county executive and his team. What we're looking at doing is for session next week, making this part of the other pieces of the puzzle in one resolution to show the other things we're doing as well.
Very good. Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
who you calling? You calling on me? Okay. I just like to just kind of add to what Dave was saying, really for the benefit of the committee. This committee in particular, folks, the world is, as we all know, is in bad shape right now. Our county and the people who live here are in bad shape. I think the stat I read this morning is that 25% of the households have someone in there who is not working right now as a result of the virus. We tax for a lot of the money that we need to spend every year. So we're largely funded, but there's some gigantic question marks as to what's going to happen with, funding from on high during the year. I think we all have observed that, people aren't going anywhere. They're not buying gas, and the gas they do buy, the prices are very, very low. I think that for whatever this is worth, you guys, this is probably the first of this first round of austerity measures, or probably the first of a few that are coming, and then we'll have a tough budget process on the heels of that. So I look forward to seeing the package at session, and I recognize the urgency with which we're going to have to deal with some of this stuff. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
At this point, yes, Casey?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with everything that both the county executive and Brian have said, and honestly, I was kind of on board with this. I mean, it seems like a relatively small increase in the responsibility of the retiree. But frankly, then I was looking at the estimate as to the numbers as to what the premiums would be for retirees. It's like a 44% increase in the cost to the retiree, which is pretty significant. And so I guess I'm having a little bit of a pause in terms of whether that's really, I guess, fair. Like I said, it's pretty substantial. It seems like a small increase in terms of 15% to 22%, but the actual numbers in terms of the impact upon the retiree in terms of the cost is significant. It's a 44% increase in their out-of-pocket cost. So I guess I'm a little bit unsure or hesitant in terms of the numbers. I mean, in terms of shifting the responsibility or increasing the responsibility for the retiree, I don't really have a problem with that. I guess it's a question of what's really an appropriate increase in the responsibility. And again, initially, 5% increase or 7% increase didn't seem too significant to me. It seemed reasonable, but when you crunch the numbers, it seems a bit draconian, I guess. So I at this point, I'm not really sure whether, I'm really supportive of the numbers, I guess.
All right.
And Casey, I would add, it's Brian, one of the reasons behind my interest in seeing the whole package is that, if everybody's hurting out there in the real world and we're going to make a measure or propose a measure like this, we better be thinking about a lot of ways that we're going to be making sacrifices. And before we ask people to absorb such an increase, because that is top of mind here as well, I think we should have a plan and have a vision for how we're going to be impacted later in the year and into next. Thanks.
And I agree. But again, I mean, we're talking about kind of a transitory problem. Obviously, this is the impact of the coronavirus is going to be significant. But we're going to get beyond this. Well, this isn't sort of a temporary measure where we're increasing it to 22% for a year or 2 years or whatever. This is going to be what they're going to have to be paying for the entire time after they retire. So it's a long-term or permanent, I guess, sort of fix or solution to address a very short-term, hopefully short-term, financial or economic problem. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Ryan, go ahead.
So I guess just for purpose of clarification, so this is for the people the retirees who were previously locked in at 12% or any other, are they going to be going up to 22%?
This is Brian Donnelly. This will not impact current retirees. This won't take effect until January 1st of 2021 and only for individuals that retire at that point or after.
Okay. So anybody who's previously that, all right, this is anything going forward. Okay.
But it's 15 to 22, correct? Yeah.
Anybody currently at 15 will be going to 22. Anybody who's previously retired and or locked in.
Anybody who is
going? I'm confused.
We're not proposing that at this time. What we're proposing is for those who retire January 1st, 2021 or later will be paying 22%. Anyone before that point will stay at their current rate. We're not proposing an increase for existing retirees or any retirees through the end of the year.
Hey, Mr. Ryan.
But there, one quick question, other one. So I guess for Brian, so this was sort of kind of tied into an incentive to get people to retire early. Right?
Chris, this had been discussed along with an incentive. The incentive is not moving forward.
The incentive is not moving forward. We know. Okay.
Okay. All right. So if that's fine, I'd
Mr. Chairman. Sorry, it's Linda.
Go ahead.
I do have some concerns also. If there's no incentive going forward, and this is quite an increase for some, I'm really concerned that we need to think this a little bit different, think this a little bit longer. I'm not prepared to support it today.
Right. We're not going to take a vote on it today. We're just considering it.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So, so there you are. Let's just leave that 9A there. And we've considered it. So let's move, if we could, to 10A, amending the 2020 county budget to make funds available in connection with the Central Library reconfiguration project. $2.3 million. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tim. This is Steve Morgan. Hope everyone can hear me. Good morning.
Good.
So 10A is looking to seek authorization and approval to amend the 2020 budget, more specifically amend the gallery's lease project. I had sent a worksheet that I know the clerk of the legislature sent out last week that I'm going to be talking through this item with. So I hope everyone has that document. Again, the legislation seeks to amend the 2020 budget, specifically this project, to the tune of almost 2.4 million. If you recall, this project was originally established in November of 2014. So the project was established at a level of $6,566,000. And it was put forward and approved to support the tenant fit out on floors 4 and 5. That's actually, that was just put up as the old sheet that I presented at facilities. I had sent a new sheet. Hopefully you have those, all the committee members have it. That included a revenue section on it as well. So that original project was established and the budget was set to pay for the tenant fit out of 4 and 5 for upstate. It also supported the rent to the galleries for the basement and space on 1 and 2 for our library reconfiguration project. And it also provided funding for condominium unit charges and maintenance, repairs, and cleaning services of that space. So that spreadsheet details those amounts that were expended against that initial approved budget. And then, I think, as you all recall, because you're all, I believe, present on Ways and Means or on the legislature, March of 2018, we came back and presented an amendment to this project. And actually, the original amendment was in the range of $4.3 million. That resolution was modified through the process, and the legislature approved $2.3 million, which was specifically to buy the square footage in the basement, the first and second floor for the library reconfiguration that we were previously leasing. So that resolution in March of 18 only approved dollars for that purchase. The additional money that we then asked for at that point that was not approved was to continue on supporting the lease of 4 and 5 to upstate. During that time, it was mentioned that we'd be back in 19 to once again modify this project. We were able to get into 2020, but now we have run out of money. So our ability to support the upstate lease on 4 and 5 of the galleries is now coming to an end without this approval. Again, this is not new news. The resolution we brought in March of 18 included these dollars, but it was not approved at that time. Only the purchase, the dollars for the purchase of that square footage for the library was approved. So that leaves us, what we're requesting is 2.37 million, which will cover the condominium unit charges, as well as maintenance, repairs, and janitorial services through the first 10 years of the upstate lease, which is 2026. That's the ask. Going through that spreadsheet, I went through those numbers. You can see the revenue side of the equation, projected through 2026. You can see the project balance is still projected to be at 3.5 million to the negative. So at that point, obviously, we'll be coming back to the legislature probably sometime in 2026 to address this project, hopefully with news that we'll be extending the lease with Upstate or a new partner at that point. So the projections in terms of the project being paid back are in the 2030, 33, 34 year. Again, we're not asking for local dollars here. This is the revenue is accumulated in this project from the lease of 4 and 5 to Upstate. So that annual lease amount is used to pay for these costs, and obviously the project is upside down as a result of the tenant fit out and the purchase price, which was transparent. We knew that was going to be the case. The whole approach here was to spin up future revenues to support the reconfiguration of the library. So that's kind of the status and where we're at, and summarizing the request.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rowley?
Steve, cash for this project comes out of the general fund. Is that correct?
Excuse me? So we use pool cash, obviously, to front the money here. And then as the lease amounts come in from Upstate, we use it to offset past and current expenses.
So can you just define pool cash? Is it just general fund cash? I mean, you can't commingle funds.
No, we don't. Our pool cash is countywide cash. So our cash can be used across all funds. So we don't, like WEP has fund balance of their own, but the cash is still in our pool cash, and we're able to tap into that and use it for any purpose of the account, pretty much.
What was pooled cash? Do you know on the 2018 CAFR?
I don't know. Right now we're in the 200 million range.
Do you know where we're going to be in 2019 when we close the books?
Assume in that same range. We just got a report for January of 2020, and we're around 214 million in cash.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I just had some comments. If people have questions, go ahead.
Yeah, let's do questions first. Might take a little bit. Questions? Questions? Comments? Go ahead, Mr. Rowley.
Chairman. So, I'm not going to rehash history. I was against this project when we first approved it. I think in this case, we're doubling down on a bad deal, my opinion. Using Steve's forecast of when this project might come to fruition in terms of being not underwater, we're into the 2033-34 year. I don't know if that's right or not. I'm assuming this amount will last through 2026. They'll come back at 2026 if we get, if that's a big if, we get a renewal of the lease and ask for more money, which will extend it, possibly beyond a 33-34 year, depending on what things cost at that point in time. I don't even know. I guess we can do a spin up, and then I question whether or not it was legal to begin with. And I think this is like I said, doubling down on a very bad deal. Given the situation, there's no way I can support this. My suggestion to the county executive to make this right is if he needed a small appropriation to get over the hump in terms of maintenance, I'd be happy to entertain that. But I think he needs to look at ROT, and I think he needs to reallocate ROT towards this project to get from underneath it. I'm not comfortable with this at all. So obviously, I'll be voting no.
I could just respond to that, Tim.
Go ahead. Yep.
So first of all, ROT can't be used in this case.
Why not?
It's to promote tourism. I think you'd have a stretch to say that the library operation is promoting tourism. Secondly, in case you haven't noticed, the economy's in a tailspin. No one's staying in hotels. The ability to use ROT is nil. We're going to be out there reducing ROT-funded contracts most likely. So there's no ROT money to be had here.
Okay.
Another thing in terms of a little bit of maintenance, if we don't have these dollars, we cannot maintain and service the lease with Upstate. So what happens then? Upstate leaves. That leaves this project completely underwater with no future revenue potentially going to come in. That at some point it's going to have to be addressed. And in that situation would have to be pulled out of the general fund, which again, I think you well know, Jim, going forward here, we're going to be in a rough patch financially.
Really, really rough patch.
So I appreciate your comments and concerns, but unfortunately at this point, we have to be good landlords to our tenant. And it's necessary to have the spending authority for us to do that.
Okay. Well, again, I just, I think you could make a case for ROT. We make a case for ROT for everything. And you're right. ROT's not going to come back anytime soon, but I got to believe it's going to come back, because if it doesn't come back, then we're in bigger trouble than I thought. I still think that's the better solution than to using pooled cash and driving this thing more negative with the hope that we're going to get a lease extension after 2026. Again, I think we need to take another look at this and try to find funds otherwhere in other places.
Others. Sorry.
May here.
You may. Go ahead.
I may. So way back, right after several of us first got onto the legislature, I voted against the big moves at the library. And then since that time, everything that has come up, I have felt there has been no choice but to support, because, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of situation. So, we knew this was coming when we kicked this can down the road a couple of years ago. And you can't see me on video, but I'll be holding my nose and voting for this today, and hoping that we're kind of getting near the end of the line with, large scale support being asked of us at the library. To Steve's point, we got a rough patch coming, but I'm saying that even without the rough patch, we just have to slow down a little bit. So thank you.
Others. Thank you, B. May. Others.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't support. I don't think I supported the initial, central library renovation, and I certainly didn't support the purchase of the additional space. Mostly because I went over to the library and there was an overabundance of unused space that was already in existence, and I saw no reason whatsoever to be buying additional space when we had, as I said, unused space already existing in the space that we already had. I would note that you know, right now we're looking being underwater, what, until 2030. 2030 is, or 2030, 10 or 14 years down the road. And then, we're projecting out maintenance and repairs of almost $2.4 million now. But, 14 years from now, we're going to be looking at facilities that are, roughly 20 years old, and probably going to be requiring quite a bit of upkeep and expansion, remodeling, whatever. It just seems like we're continuing to throw money down, a hole here. $11.3 million for this library where we have space that is unutilized now. I really encourage the executive side to look at, I guess, figuring the space. We have space that is, last time, unutilized, wide open areas. And it seems to me that we could make better use or economize on the space, reduce costs by utilizing the space that we have more efficiently. And if maybe we could sell off some of this space, reconfigure, more appropriately utilize the space, and maybe get rid of some of the space that we have, and reduce our costs.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda.
Yes, Mrs. Irving, go ahead.
It's fine to look back and say we made a mistake and whatever, but at this point going forward, what is your solution to doing this? What are you going to do with the extra space, Casey, if you find some extra space there? Bottom line is, at this particular point in time, we're in a situation where we have to do something to cover the maintenance for the tenant that's there right now. So I don't think there's any choice in doing what's being asked of us to do right now. It's a matter of looking forward to doing something different as we go in before we get to 2026.
If we could reconfigure it, you'd be utilizing less space, sell off some of our space, then we're reducing our costs. Maybe our maintenance, repairs and janitorial service costs, or our overall costs can be reduced.
But it wouldn't be immediate, would it?
Well, no,
That would not.
But the $2.4 million isn't immediate either. It's between now and 2020 or 2026. So yeah, but the appropriation you're talking about is an appropriation to get us through the end of the current lease, not just over the next year. So if we are better utilizing our space, reducing our costs, then maybe we don't need $2.4 million to get us through the end of the lease term.
I have a motion. You ready?
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda. I'll move it.
First by Mrs. Irvin, thank you. Is there a second?
Chairman, it's Legislator Ryan. I'll second the motion.
Mr. Ryan's a second. Could we call the roll, please? Thank you.
Legislators Jordan,
No.
Rowley,
No.
Ryan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Irvin,
Yes.
May,
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
5 ayes, 2 opposed.
All right. Thank you. If we could go to 11A, please. Memorializing New York State to enact legislation to extending the authorization to impose an additional rate of sales and compensating use tax. All
right, thanks, Tim. Again, it's Steve Morgan, item 11A. So this is the second step in getting our 1% extended for another period of time, another 2 years. This is the home rule legislation. You can see that there are Assembly and Senate bills identified in the legislation. So this is a matter of course. This is the same process we've used for years since we've had the 1%. So this now will be our home rule legislation that will be forwarded on to the state for consideration. Obviously, in the situation we're in, I believe the state is looking to address all of these, combine them, consolidate them, bundle them, and vote on them all at once. So hopefully these don't get lost in the shuffle, or may reduce our ability to continue on at 8%. But this is matter of course, and it's the typical process, historical process we've used to maintain that additional 1%.
So this is what the legislature has done every 2 years. This one's going to run for 3 though, right? Into
there's a little confusion around there, but
okay, yeah,
it's potentially 3, and we'll make sure obviously that if it's not, that we come over during the right period of time to ensure that we can continue to charge us. The last step would actually be I believe it's a local law to actually enact the additional 1%. So there's one last step after this. Once the state legislature adopts legislation allowing our county to continue with the 1%.
Understand. Is any questions or comments here?
Hop in, Chairman. Dave Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
So just to make sure there's no misinterpretation, this is for our 1% of our sales tax that we've done every couple of years, as Tim noted, for the last, I don't know, at least 10 years. This has nothing to do with the room occupancy tax. That's a totally separate thing. We've already taken care of that. We're all set. So this is just for the additional extra 1% of sales tax that we have. And obviously, we're desperately going to need this money going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Others, something to say? My question. Very good. We're ready for a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll move
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman. Linda.
Let's say be May 1st and Mrs. Irvin second. And then could we call the roll, please?
Legislators Jordan,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Irvin,
Yes.
May,
Yes.
Burtis.
Yes.
Passed unanimously.
Very good. Well, I think this has been a process, a good day here today. So thank you to everybody. And thank you to Debbie and really for everybody for working so hard to be here. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Linda.
Yep, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's just like that, Debbie, okay?
Tim, well, thank you everyone for your patience and, keeping this moving forward. Overall, this worked out pretty well. I think the key thing about it going forward, if we have to do this again, is everyone muting their phone before or their computer, whatever, when they're not talking, but which keeps the background noise down. But now we're going to have to